Something just happened that almost nobody is talking about, but it could quietly affect millions of people overnight. A unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. Let that sink in. In today's divided world, when all 9 justices agree on something tied to immigration security checks, you know it's serious. And now, this decision is being linked to policies connected to Donald Trump's immigration agenda, policies that could tighten screening, expand background checks, and change how people enter, stay, or even remain legally protected. But here's the part that should grab your attention. This isn't just about new immigrants. This could impact visa holders, green card applicants, travelers, and even people already living in the system. New layers of verification, deeper scrutiny, longer processing times, and in some cases, unexpected denials. Imagine thinking everything is fine, your paperwork submitted, your future planned, only to find out that a new security rule quietly changed the outcome. No warning, no headline, just a sudden shift. So what exactly did the court decide? Why did all 9 justices agree? And how does this connect to broader immigration enforcement moving forward? In this video, we're breaking it all down in simple terms. What's changing, who's affected, and what you need to watch out for next. Because missing this update could cost you time, money, or even your status. If you want to stay informed and protect yourself from unexpected changes, hit that like button right now. And let's dive in. Right after hearing that headline, it's completely natural to feel a mix of confusion, concern, and even a little disbelief. A 9-0 ruling from the Supreme Court is rare, and when something this unified happens around immigration and security checks, it signals that something deeper is unfolding beneath the surface. So let's walk through this together, because what's happening isn't just a political headline, it's a shift that could quietly reshape how immigration is handled going forward. At the center of this moment is a legal question that, on the surface, might sound technical, but in reality touches real lives in very real ways. The court's decision reinforces the government's authority to apply stricter scrutiny when it comes to immigration-related security checks. Now, that might sound expected. After all, security has always been part of immigration, but what's different here is the level of clarity and strength behind that authority. When all 9 justices agree, it removes a lot of the legal gray areas that previously left room for interpretation and challenge. And that's where things begin to change. Because when there's less ambiguity in the law, agencies move faster, policies become more consistent, and enforcement becomes more confident. This means that procedures tied to background checks, identity verification, and eligibility reviews could become more detailed and, in many cases, more demanding. For someone applying for a visa, renewing a status, or even waiting on a decision that's been pending for months, this can translate into longer wait times or additional requests for information that weren't previously required. But let's bring this closer to reality. Picture someone who has been living and working legally, following every rule, submitting every document on time. Suddenly, a new layer of review is applied to their case. Not because they did anything wrong, but because the system itself has evolved. That extra layer might involve deeper background checks, cross-referencing more databases, or reevaluating past information under updated standards. It doesn't mean automatic denial, but it does mean increased uncertainty, and uncertainty is where the real emotional impact begins. Because immigration isn't just paperwork. It's people's futures, families, careers, and stability. When the rules shift, even slightly, it can feel like the ground is moving under your feet. That's why this ruling matters so much. It's not just about what's written in legal language, it's about how that language gets translated into real-world decisions. Now, you might be wondering how this connects to broader immigration policies, especially those associated with stricter enforcement approaches. The answer lies in how legal authority shapes policy direction. When the highest court confirms that certain levels of scrutiny are fully within the government's power, it opens the door for policymakers to expand or reinforce those measures. It doesn't automatically create new laws, but it strengthens the foundation for them. This is where things become particularly important for people who are currently navigating the system. Because even if you're not directly affected today, changes like this can influence what happens tomorrow. A process that used to take 3 months might take 6. A document that was once optional might become essential. A background check that was routine might become more extensive. These are the kinds of shifts that don't always make headlines, but they shape outcomes in very real ways. And then there's the question of consistency. One of the reasons this ruling stands out is because it reduces the likelihood of conflicting decisions across different courts. In the past, similar cases might have been interpreted differently depending on the jurisdiction. Now, with a unanimous decision, there's a clearer standard to follow. That might sound like a positive step, and in many ways it is. But it also means that stricter interpretations, if adopted, can be applied more uniformly. So what does this mean for someone watching right now? It means awareness is no longer optional. Staying informed isn't just helpful, it's essential. Because when the system evolves, the people who understand those changes early are the ones who can adapt, prepare, and protect their position. Let's talk about preparation for a moment. One of the most important things anyone in the immigration process can do right now is ensure that their documentation is complete, accurate, and up to date. That might sound basic, but in an environment where scrutiny is increasing, even small inconsistencies can lead to delays or additional questioning. It's about reducing risk wherever possible, because the margin for error may be getting smaller. Another important aspect is timing. If processes are becoming more detailed, they're also likely becoming slower. That means planning ahead becomes even more critical. Waiting until the last minute to renew a status or submit an application could carry greater consequences than it did before. Thinking a few steps ahead can make a significant difference. And then there's communication. Keeping track of updates, notices, and any changes in requirements is key. Because sometimes, the biggest challenges don't come from major policy shifts. They come from missing a small update that changes how something needs to be done. What's interesting about this moment is that it's not defined by a single dramatic change, but rather by a series of subtle shifts that add up over time. It's like a tide slowly rising. You might not notice it at first, but eventually, it changes the entire landscape. That's what makes this ruling so important. It sets the stage for those gradual changes to unfold with greater certainty. Now, let's address something that often gets overlooked in conversations like this: the human side of the system. Behind every application, every review, every decision, there are people. People who are working, studying, raising families, building lives. And when policies evolve, those lives are directly affected. That's why understanding these changes isn't just about staying compliant. It's about staying grounded in a process that can sometimes feel overwhelming. At the same time, it's important not to jump to conclusions or assume the worst. Increased scrutiny doesn't automatically mean negative outcomes. In many cases, it simply means a more thorough process. But knowing that the process is changing allows you to approach it with clarity instead of confusion. This is also a moment where reliable information becomes incredibly valuable. In a world where headlines can sometimes exaggerate or oversimplify, taking the time to understand what's actually happening gives you a real advantage. It allows you to separate fact from fear and preparation from panic. As we move forward, the key thing to watch will be how agencies implement this reinforced authority. Because the court's decision sets the legal framework, but the day-to-day impact comes from how that framework is applied. That's where policies, procedures, and real-world experiences begin to align, or sometimes diverge. And that brings us back to why this conversation matters so much right now. Because moments like this don't come with loud alarms or clear warnings. They unfold quietly through updates, adjustments, and gradual changes that reshape the system over time. Being aware of that process puts you in a position of strength. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this: stay informed, stay prepared, and stay proactive. Because in a system that's becoming more defined and more detailed, those three things can make all the difference. And as we continue to follow how this ruling influences future developments, you'll want to stay connected to updates that actually break things down in a clear and practical way, without the noise, without the confusion, and without leaving you guessing about what it means for you. If this helped you understand what's really going on,